Hi everyone, I'm trying a YouTube premiere for the first time today, and I'm going to try and also include two sets of videos when I need to show you a close-up. I haven't done this before, so I'm really curious to see how this whole experiment is going to play out. Now today I want to try and talk a bit through the next few stages that we're going to work on with the Stash Dive knit along. I'll show you what I've progressed on and where I'm going with it, and then you can tell me how you're getting on. You can just pop into the little chat section there, and when it's premiering I will be here to answer any questions you might have. So just to kind of recap from the last day, the yarns I'm using are the three main ones are this yellow yarn, this central one which is kind of like a pale blue I suppose, and finally you've got the darker kind of a grey colour. I think I'm going to do a design that's similar to this sweater here. This is just a shop sweater I got, it was like a couple of years ago. I don't wear it all that much because it's kind of a really acrylic-y feel to it, but I like the shape. I wear it quite a bit over things. You can see it's a very straightforward kind of a boxy shape where it's just out to this point here, fairly short, and then stitches down from here. And the way I'm going to construct it, and my plan was to cast on stitches all the way along across the back here. Then I will knit the back with, you see here the top part's a little higher. I'm going to do short rows back and forth to slope the shoulder, then knit straight down to the underarm and the back, and then put the stitches aside, and then come back and pick up stitches on this side of the front and that side of the front, and work short rows the same as the back for a little bit of a slope, and then go just a little bit down and start increasing across the front here for a neck, and then it's straight down. And those two bits right at the start will be the only complex bits where you're going to do some short rows and you're going to go do some increases to bring down the neck shape, but that'll be pretty much it. So like my plan was, as we reached those, I'll give you the formula that I'm using and you can calculate based on yours. So if you come over here, you can see this is my diagram that I've got here that I'm it's what I showed you on the actual sweater here. So this is going to be those top stitches here, and you'll knit down to here, join in the round and come down to here. Now the lengths I've shown here, this is the length for the longer section because of the short rows, and then this is the body. The biggest thing I'm going to change with this is on the sweater here, the body is only 15.5 inches long. That really is a little bit short, so I was going to add a tiny bit longer. And I wanted to keep it all fairly modular and easy to remember. So because I've got three different colors, so I wanted to divide it into three even parts. I thought if I did 5.5 inches for each color segment, it would keep it nice and easy to work with. I've had a few questions as well from people kind of asking about what they would do for reserving for sleeves, or to whether they know they have enough yarn. Because we're all doing different yarns and different amounts, what I'm going to do is I will, on the blog, I'm going to put up my swatch size, and I'll show you how you can calculate how much, well, you can weigh to see how much yarn that uses and show you the area. And then I will show you how to calculate the area roughly. You're just doing a really rough calculation of the area of your actual sweater. And so you can see if you've got enough yarn or close to. The reason I'm not going to worry too much with this one is because I want to do the three colors going down on the body, and at that point I'll see whatever yarns I've got left in the three main colors, and I'll divide them in two for the sleeves. But I'm perfectly happy to bring in these two spare ones as much wider mohair stripes as we go down. So I'm basically using those two bonus ones as spillover for the sleeves if I don't have quite enough. So let me show you my number calculations here. So I started off and I did my swatch, which I showed you the last day. And when I measured it, I got 26 stitches in 4 inches. So to see how many stitches I have in 1 inch, I divide 26 by 4, which gives me 6.5 stitches and 1 inch. Now, because I'm going to keep the sweater size I had, I'm going to see for across here, which is like half of your body size, I'm looking for 22 inches. So to calculate that, I'm going to take my 6.5 and I multiply by 22 and I come up with 143. But I don't want an odd number, so I'm just going to round up to 144. And that's going to be the total cast on I have across the full width of the shoulders. So that's 144 stitches. Now the next thing I want to calculate here is the width of the neck. Now in the sweater, I've taken this point here, so I'm ignoring the ribbing because we're going to put that on afterwards. I want to see the actual, let me turn it around here, the body, how wide these are here, and that comes out at 10 inches. So if I calculate that with my other one, 6.5 stitches over 10 inches is 65 stitches. But again, I'm going to round, and I'll round down this time to 64. So that's going to give me 64 stitches in the middle. There's 144 altogether. So I'll take 64 away from that, which is going to give me 80, divide it by 2, and that will give me 40. So I'll have 40 stitches here, 64 across here, and 40 across there. So what I'm going to do next is cast on with the lightest color, because that's what I'm going to start with, across 144 stitches, and put a marker 40 from each end to show where the shoulders are, right? So that's what this one is here. And I've gone ahead and just cast this on here, all 144 stitches, and I've put those 2 markers in. Now, you're not going to have the same number of stitches here because I want you to decide, ideally, if you can find a sweater of a similar size or style that you want, or it doesn't have to be the same one, but the boxy is good for what we're doing. Figure out what width you want your sweater to be, how wide or narrow you want the neck. 10 inches is fairly wide, but I reckon I can actually pick up enough stitches and pull it in if I don't want it as wide at the top. So you can kind of decide how wide you want it. Then measure your gauge, figure out the number of stitches per inch, and calculate what those different ones are. And that is going to be the only calculation you're going to need to do for a while. Now what I'm going to do at this point is, I've been talking about doing short rows. And what you're going to do for that is we're going to use these as our starting points. And for the short rows, I'm going to go and make turns every inch. So for that, again, it's not going to be an exact amount, but I'm going to assume every 6 stitches I'll make a turn. So what I will do is I'm going to knit all the way across to that second marker, which is the same as the second shoulder. And I'm going to work 6 extra stitches and do a short row. You can do wrap and turn, you can do German short row, any method at all you want. Then work all the way back over here. You'll come to this marker and we're going to go and work another 6 stitches, do your short row. Come back here, work to whatever your short row was, and then another 6 stitches, and do the same back and forth. And that is going to be useful no matter what gauge you've got, because for me, mine was every 6 stitches. You can actually, if you've got very sloped shoulders, you want more short rows, so you might move it a little bit closer and give you more of a slope. If you've got fairly straight shoulders, you might bring it a little closer, a little further apart, and so perhaps you might have it every 7 stitches. So it's, it's just to create that really nice slope at the top so it'll fit your shoulders well. Once you've finished that, then I'm going to work ahead down with, I was saying altogether it's going to be 5.5 inches, but I'm probably going to take at least an inch where I'm going to, on either side where I'm alternating between the colors. So what I think I will do is, you can see here is my 5.5 inches in total. So I'm going to make it 5 inches in the first color. And then I'm going to take 1 inch where I'm doing that alternating, like we did in the swatch, because this point is going to be still going to be where we're actually going to be doing it in rows because it's just going to be straight down to the armhole. And then I can start working on to the next 5 inches. And the one thing I haven't mentioned yet is I haven't mentioned the size of the armhole. This one here, I'm going to stick with, it's a fairly generous upper arm. It comes in, when you measure from here to here, it's 7 3/4 inches. So I think I'm going to stick with that. And what that also means is I'm going to be into my second color when I'm finished the opening of the arm. So I'll have my 5 inches in this color. I'll have 1 inch where I'm alternating between the two of these. So that's going to be 6 inches in total. And then I'll have 1 3/4 inches where I'm working in just this. So at that point, I'll have done the back from the top of the shoulder to the underarm. And I don't know if I'll get that done by next week, but I'm going to see if I can. And maybe you can try if you can work that far as well. If I can get that far, then I can show you how I'm going to go back and pick up stitches on the other side. One other thing you might do that would make it easier is see where I've got these markers in here. Once I've knit a little bit here, I might put a safety pin or marker at this point, because that's going to make it easier when you come back, because you can see where this is going to be your shoulder here and here. And when I come back to work it on this side, I'm going to want to pick up stitches from here to here. And if you've left a marker on the side here, you know exactly the 2 points you're going to pick up those stitches at. So why don't you go ahead this week and on the blog, I'm going to go put up some area calculations for yarn amounts in case you're worried about running out of yarn. Ideally, if you can pull in just another yarn so you don't have to think about it, it's great. But if you've got very limited amount of yarns and you want to make sure it works out okay, then it should hopefully help you out. So I'll put that up. Measure your swatch. Figure out the size that you want to make in your sweater. So the same way as I took this sweater here, measured it up and decided what parts I wanted to stay the same, which were kind of most of it really. The only real difference is I'm going to make the length just a little bit longer, and I can even adjust that as I'm going, because even if there's an extra inch of the final color, it's fine. It's not going to look out of place. So that's going to be what your homework is now, is if you need to calculate the area, figure your size of your sweater, and then decide on your gauge, or rather I should say measure your gauge. Go measure your gauge and do the calculations that I've shown to see how many stitches you're going to need for your size. Then figure out the shoulders and the short rows that you're going to go put in for each of them, and go knit down to that point next week. One thing I haven't done with this is you can see in the back there's a very slight curve where there's increases along each side. For this sweater, I'm just going to keep it straight across. It's not going to make a huge amount of difference, and I'm trying to simplify it, and it won't make an awful lot of difference. I think particularly once the short rows and sloping the shoulders are probably, I think, of more importance. So does that make sense to all of you? If there's anything you need a little bit of extra help with, give me a shout, and I'll answer the questions in the comments. And also remember to check out carolfeller.com for the blog post where I'll kind of put all of the new information about this up there. Have fun!